In this video, I'm going to walk you through on how to set up the WAGO PFC 300 as PROFINET master and using the WAGO PROFINET Coupler as a remote I/O. First thing we're going to do is set up the IP address on the coupler. In order to do that, you're going to need a PRONETA. You can download the PRONETA Basic for free on Siemens website. Once you have downloaded, you can launch the software. Here, install this analysis. I can just go to the setting and select my adapter. That's going to be on the PROFINET network. Go to network analysis. And right away, it sees my WAGO device. So here is where you can click and set in static IP address. My computer is actually on a 1 dot network. So if I change the IP address and then confirm the right, so now it's going to have 192.168.1.75. And if you ever need to update the firmware on the coupler, you definitely want to set a static IP. And then if you use the WAGO upload, which you can download on the WAGO download center. And you come in and search for the device. This is my 750-375 PROFINET coupler. And here the firmware update state is ready. Right now, I do have the latest version for firmware 11, but you can, just to show you on how to update the firmware. And all the firmware, again, you can go to the download center and get those firmware as well. You can get the device description file for the PROFINET. Also, you can go down to here, the firmware section, and WAGO I/O system for 750, 753, and select the coupler. And you can download the latest version as well as the previous version if it's available. So the latest is at 11 right now. And select the firmware file and click next, and it's going to tell you that the application is going to be stopped, and then you can click next to continue. And now the update has been successfully finished. So we can finish, click on finish and close the WAGO. So that's how you update the firmware on the coupler. Move on to Codesys. So here I'm going to select PFC 300 750-8302. I'm going to start a new project. Name for the project. And select my controller. Before we go on, I'm going to log into the web-based management of my PFC. And there are a few things that we need to set up here for the PROFINET. So when you do a PROFINET, and you want to make sure you split the ports, and then give it a static IP for port 1 and port 2. So port 2 is going to be the 1 dot network, which is my local, and then my 2 dot, I'm going to use port 1 as my PROFINET port. So the PFC 300 port 1 will connect to the port 1 of the PROFINET coupler. And then here, double click on the device, switch my gateway, and depending on how your gateway is set up, my gateway 2 is set up to scan my local devices to detect my PFC 300. And then here I add a device, and I want to do PROFINET. Top on port 1, so that's PR0. And then it's going to be a PROFINET controller. Needs a controller. I'm going to select my WAGO PROFINET Coupler. And there's two versions here. There's a regular and there's what's called PE-DAP. Recommend using the PE-DAP. There's more configuration that's available. If you don't see this list, then that means you have not installed the device description file for the WAGO Remote I/O. In order to do that, go to Tools, Device Repository, and then make sure you download the device description for the PROFINET. And once you download that, there's basically, it's going to have all of the WAGO PROFINET devices. So, go to that file. So then it's going to have the latest version for the 750, 753 series. There's also for 765 series and 852 series. So select the ones you You want to import in to the Codesys. Make sure you unzip it. So in the unzip file, you have that XML, and that's what you're going to import in here. So I'm going to import it in the 750 and 753 series. And then click open, and then it's going to do the install. So I already have it installed. From there. I'm going to add my remote I/O here. So far I have the Ethernet port, and I also have the Ethernet and the controller and the coupler. So here I'm going to go ahead and log in. One thing I forgot was to set my interface. So I split the ports on the coupler, but like I mentioned, I have port 1 in the .2 network and port 2 in the .1. So I'm going to change the IP address on this one again. Say 2.75. So 2.75. Browse again. You're going to see the BR0, which is port 1, 2.subnet. And here, we're going to set up my device. Change the range there. Port 1, basically on the controller, the PFC300, is connected to my slave device. Here it's going to be the IP address of the PROFINET Coupler. And here's some communication settings here as well. You can do a millisecond, you can do 4 milliseconds. And there's an option on here as well to enable the web server, which is the web-based management. It's disabled by default, but you can see the web-based management, you can enable that. But basically, you don't need to do anything on the web-based management. You can do everything from the controller side. So then here on the coupler, port 1 is connected to the controller. and the port 2 is going to daisy chain to the next device. So make sure this port data matches. So port 1 is connected to the slave, and on the 375, make sure that port 1 is also calls out the controller. Let's go ahead and connect. Start. So the Ethernet's good, the PN's good. We still haven't added any IOs on the 375, so that's still gonna have some error there. So let's go ahead and log out. Here's a nice trick as well. Once you have at least the network and the controller set up, and you run it, and everything is green, you could come to log out, and then you can right click on the PN controller and scan for devices. And it'll go out and detect that it's a 375, and it'll show a couple also the IOs that are um, on the 375 coupler. So there's a 8 DIO, 8 channel in, 8 channel out, which is a 750-1605, and then it's got an analog 75496, and then a 75498. And here you can get copy the project, and then I'll bring in all that information automatically. So then here, select controller, port 1 on the PN, yes, port 1 as well. Go ahead and log in. And start. And now it's going to go through initialization, and once all that's good, then everything is set up correctly in the layers, then you'll see all these green circles. If you don't want to do a scan for devices to bring these in, you could also manually add them as well. So you can delete that out, and here you can add change the name on this one. And then underneath the coupler, we can add digital in, digital out. Analog. So now you actually have a part number on here, and exactly which modules are on the node. And once you manually add the IO modules, again, set up your port data. So WAGO 3.5, port 1, and then on the coupler controller port 1, and then make sure your station name here matches up to that. Okay. If they do not match, then you're going to have an error communication. Go back online, and everything is green. Everything. Click on the street here. Out. Map. The data points right on here is from at those. Appealing. So to have all RTD sensor, channel 1, see the temperature change. Have it as set up. Follow PROFINET Codesys. Thank you for watching.